Okay, Donald Trump has started the pardons. Well, he's continuing the pardons. Speculation for several weeks about exactly when a flurry of pardons and commutations would come from Donald Trump. Speculation continues about the preemptive pardons Trump is said to be considering for Rudy Giuliani and his children, his son-in-law Jared Kushner, and many, many others. But there are now 15 or so more pardons and commutations issued yesterday by Donald Trump. Now, as far as the Russia probe, remember the one that led to all sorts of arrests and indictments, Donald Trump has pardoned his own former foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, who was found guilty of lying to federal investigators, as well as Alex van der Zwaan, who was the Dutch lawyer who also lied to investigators in connection with the Russia investigation. So slowly but surely, Donald Trump is pardoning everybody who was wrapped up in the Mueller probe. It's a sort of revisionist history. The investigation did find lots of crimes. They like to claim it didn't. But in any case, Trump will just keep pardoning everybody and in a way retroactively wipe the slate clean. Even those folks were convicted and a pardon, a part of, this is a kind of a bigger legal debate. But if you're pardoned, then you're conceding you were guilty. Now, you could say, well, it was an unfair guilty verdict, and you can make that case. Donald Trump also pardoning former Republican Congressman Duncan Hunter, former Republican Congressman Chris Collins, 4 Blackwater mercenaries involved in an Iraqi massacre. That's an entire other story we previously covered. 2 Border Patrol agents convicted in 2006 for shooting and wounding an unarmed, undocumented immigrant and then actually covering it up. Just a horrible signal that sends. Trump pardoned several people convicted of nonviolent drug crimes who were serving long sentences. That I agree with. Trump also pardoning Alfonso Costa, a dentist who pleaded guilty to healthcare fraud. Alfred Lee Crum, who pleaded guilty to illegally distilling moonshine 70 years ago. Weldon Angelos, who was sentenced to 55 years for selling marijuana and carrying a handgun. Philip Lyman, county commissioner in Utah, who was sentenced to 10 days in jail because of his protest on ATV restrictions on federal land. Okay. And Otis Gordon, who was convicted of possession with intent to distribute. Also, Philip S. Formes, a Florida nursing home mogul, convicted for paying bribes in a Medicare fraud case, also had some of his sentence commuted by Trump. And in addition to the pardons, a number of commutations, the remaining prison term of former Congressman Steve Stockman, that's the Texas Republican convicted for almost 24 felonies, including fraud and money laundering. And Trump saying that because Stockman is 64 with underlying pre-existing conditions, he's at greater risk during COVID, and he already got COVID while in prison. What's interesting about that is Trump says, hey, I'm good now because I got COVID. But even though this guy already got COVID and recovered, it's still a reason to pull him from prison. A little bit incoherent, but it is Trump after all. So the big picture here is, number one, this is likely to be just the start of Donald Trump's pardons. Number two, this is a separate path. It's a separate topic than the preemptive pardons being considered for his family members, people like Jared Kushner, Ivanka, Don Jr., Eric Trump. And we've learned over the last 7 to 10 days the possible reasons they would benefit from a preemptive pardon. Jared Kushner potentially already being investigated for creating this shell company through which hundreds of millions of dollars in campaign donations may have been laundered. Rudy Giuliani reportedly talking to Trump about a preemptive pardon, et cetera. But here is the clear trend. And actually, listen to this data point. Harvard Law School professor Jack Goldsmith looked at Trump's pardons so far and found that 88% of the pardons so far are for people either personally tied to Trump or people whose actions furthered Trump's political aims or protected him in some way. Now, presidents have absolute pardon power. We know that. Trump has repeated that often. It's not really in question, legally speaking. The issue here is that it's always more corrupt with Trump. So many of the pardons are for crimes committed by people connected to Trump or even people who helped Trump by the crimes they committed, including lying to investigators ostensibly to protect Donald Trump in the Mueller probe. So we can have a broader debate about pardons in general, and we've had that debate, and that's not really the topic here. With Trump, he's able to dial up the corruption and cronyism just a little bit or even significantly. And that's exactly what he's done here, and we'll wait and see what the full list of pardons is. I want to take a second to tell you about one of our sponsors, S&H Masks. S&H Masks has everything you need when it comes to face masks and other protective gear for COVID-19, and they're giving my audience 20% off. S&H Masks is the company that I've personally been going to for face masks. I love and trust the products they sell, and that's actually why I reached out to them about being a sponsor. I've tried tons of different face masks this year, like many of you, and I still have not found a mask that is more comfortable or easier to breathe in than the washable cotton masks that they sell. It's made of a silky, lightweight cloth that feels great on the skin, has a convenient adjustable strap. They also have disposable cloth masks, which are really comfortable, as well as all of the other gear like face shields, alcohol wipes, no-touch infrared thermometers. And all of their prices are very reasonable. I also love S&H Masks because they've donated over 60,000 masks to healthcare institutions. They're an excellent company. Shipping is just $5, and shipping is free on orders over $150. You can get there by going to davidpakman.com/mask. The link is under this video, and you can save 20% on everything in their store when you use the coupon code DAVID.